My name is Rachel Carter. I'm 32 years old, a nurse in Dallas, Texas, and for as long as I can remember, my flaw has been being too trusting. I believed people's words more than their actions, and that mistake almost destroyed me. She laughed when I had nothing. She laughed as if my pain was a joke, as if my failures were her entertainment. But what happened next left her on her knees, begging for forgiveness she would never get. If you're watching this, please like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Has anyone ever betrayed you when you needed them most? Please share your thoughts in the comments. And let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to hear your story. I wasn't born into wealth or comfort. My father was a truck driver, always on the road, and my mother worked double shifts at a diner. We didn't have much, but we had each other. I grew up in a little 2-bedroom house on the south side of Dallas, where Sundays were for pancakes and family gossip around the kitchen table. That's where I learned the beauty of small traditions, things that didn't cost money but carried weight. My mom used to say, "Baby, loyalty is the one thing the world can't take from you." I believed her. Back then, I thought loyalty was forever. When I became a nurse, I carried those lessons with me. Long shifts, sleepless nights, endless patience. I endured them all because I wanted to help people. But what I didn't know then was that the very people I trusted most would treat my loyalty like dirt under their shoes. My cousin Emily was like a sister to me. We grew up together, chasing fireflies in the yard, whispering secrets under the covers during sleepovers. When her parents divorced, she practically moved into our house. I shared everything with her, my clothes, my music, even my deepest fears. She was different from me, though, ambitious in ways I wasn't. While I stayed close to family, Emily dreamed of fast cars, city lights, and a man who could give her everything. She had this way of making me feel small without saying it outright. Like when I'd tell her about my 12-hour shifts, and she'd tilt her head and smirk. "You work too hard for too little." I could never. I'd laugh it off, convincing myself she didn't mean harm, but her words left splinters. At first, her judgments were subtle. Little digs about my job, my clothes, even the modest apartment I rented. She always had a boyfriend, usually older men with nice cars, and she loved to flaunt it. "Don't you want more, Rach?" she'd ask, twirling the keys of some new Lexus her boyfriend let her drive. "You're beautiful, smart. You could have anything if you just stopped settling." I'd smile, pretending her words didn't sting. But deep down, I wondered if she was right. Still, I kept her close. Family was family, or so I thought. One Thanksgiving, Emily showed up to dinner in a designer dress, hanging onto the arm of a man twice her age. He was some wealthy investor, the kind who shook hands too firmly and looked at you like he was calculating your worth in dollars. Throughout dinner, Emily kept boasting about their trips, their plans, and their money. My mom, ever the peacemaker, smiled politely, but I caught the flicker of disappointment in her eyes. Later, when Emily and her boyfriend left, Mom whispered, "Not everything that glitters is gold, Rachel. Remember that." I nodded, but her words sank into me like stones. Months later, my life crumbled. My apartment complex caught fire. In a single night, everything I owned, my clothes, furniture, even the journals I'd kept since I was 13, was reduced to ashes. I barely escaped with my life. Standing outside in the cold night air, wrapped in a Red Cross blanket, I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, homeless, broken, with nothing left but the uniform I wore to work. I thought, Emily would be the one person to comfort me. After all, she was my family. But when I called her, trembling and desperate, she didn't offer me a place to stay. She didn't even sound sympathetic. Instead, she laughed. "Rachel," she said, her voice dripping with amusement, "you always..." Did love being the martyr? Maybe this is the universe telling you to stop playing the poor nurse and start aiming higher. Honestly, it's kind of pathetic. I froze, the phone trembling in my hand. My cousin, my best friend, my so-called sister, laughing at my destruction. And that was the moment something inside me broke. I didn't know it then, but Emily's laughter would ignite a fire in me far hotter than the one that destroyed my home. A fire that would turn my pain into power and leave Emily begging for mercy. But I wasn't ready to fight back yet. First, I had to hit rock bottom. Growing up, I always thought my family was my safety net. No matter how messy life got, no matter how little money we had, I believed we would always stand together. My mom, Linda, was the glue that held us all in place. She worked long shifts at the diner, yet somehow never missed a school play. Never. Forgot a birthday, and always made time to remind me that love was measured in presence, not presence. She used to tuck strands of my hair behind my ear and whisper, "Rachel, remember, kindness is our legacy. Never let this world make you cruel." That line stayed with me. But kindness, I would learn, can be a dangerous weakness in the wrong company. Our family gatherings were simple but sacred. Thanksgiving dinners crammed into our little kitchen. Christmas mornings where secondhand gifts were wrapped so carefully they looked like treasures. Even birthdays, where Mom baked her famous chocolate cake, the kind so sweet it left your teeth aching, became little reminders that joy didn't need to cost a fortune. And Emily, Emily was always there, slipping into the center of things, like she was born to shine. She was charming, beautiful, magnetic. Everyone noticed her, even when they didn't want to. When we were kids, she used to sneak into my room, climbing into bed beside me, whispering secrets about the boys she liked, or the dreams she had of moving to New York and making it big. I used to admire her courage, the way she never seemed afraid of dreaming too loudly. But somewhere along the way, her dreams turned into demands, and her charm turned into something sharper, something dangerous. As we grew older, the differences between us became harder to ignore. I worked my way through nursing school, picking up double shifts, skipping nights out so I could study anatomy and pharmacology until my eyes burned. Emily, meanwhile, floated from boyfriend to boyfriend, each one a little older, a little richer. She never seemed to worry about money, because someone else was always footing the bill. When I'd come home exhausted after a 12-hour shift, she'd toss her hair and laugh. "Why kill yourself for pennies, Rach? You could have a man take care of you. You'd never have to lift a finger again." I'd shake my head, smiling politely, even as my chest tightened, because deep down, I knew she wasn't just teasing. She was dismissing me, dismissing everything I had worked for. It was little things at first. One Christmas, I saved up to buy her a leather purse she'd been eyeing. She unwrapped it, smiled faintly, and then said, "It's cute. But you..." No, I'd never actually buy leather that cheap. My cheeks burned, but I laughed it off. I told myself she didn't mean to be cruel. Another time, I introduced her to one of my friends from the hospital. Within minutes, Emily had charmed him so completely that he barely looked at me the rest of the night. Later, she leaned in with a smirk and whispered, "If you don't want men stolen, maybe don't bring them around me." That was Emily. Everything was a game to her, a game she always had to win. After the fire took my apartment, the divide between us became a canyon. I had nothing left. No clothes but my scrubs, no furniture, no savings worth speaking of. I was sleeping on a coworker's couch, feeling like a guest in a life I didn't belong to. Every night, I stared at the ceiling and asked myself how everything had unraveled so quickly. I thought Emily would understand. That she'd remember the nights we whispered dreams as children, the times I held her hand when her parents screamed at each other, the meals I shared when her fridge was empty. But instead, she mocked me. She treated my downfall like entertainment. That laugh of hers, it haunted me. One evening, I sat at Mom's kitchen table, sipping lukewarm tea, feeling more like a ghost than a daughter. Mom reached across the table, her eyes tired but steady. "Rachel," she said softly, "I don't trust that girl anymore. Emily's not the same child who shared your bed during storms. She's hungry, for something I can't name. And when people like that get hungry, they'll eat anyone alive. Even family." Her words chilled me. I wanted to argue, to defend Emily, but my throat closed up. Because deep down, I knew she was right. The real shift happened at a family barbecue a few weeks later. I was still trying to piece my life back together, juggling extra shifts at the hospital, praying for a cheap apartment to open up. Emily arrived late, wearing heels that clicked against the driveway like gunfire. On her arm was a new man, a tall, polished lawyer named Daniel. He had that same calculating gaze her last boyfriend carried, the kind that stripped you down to numbers and assets. While the rest of us ate burgers and potato salad, Emily and Daniel kept their distance, whispering together, watching me. At one point, I caught Daniel's voice, low, amused. "So that's the cousin you told me about?" Emily smirked, brushing his chest with her manicured hand. "The nurse with nothing? Yeah, that's her." My stomach dropped. That was the first time I realized Emily wasn't just laughing at me. She was painting me as a punchline to strangers. And if she was willing to humiliate me in whispers, what else was she capable of? I didn't know it yet, but her betrayal was about to cut deeper than I ever imagined. I tried to ignore the barbecue incident. I told myself I'd misheard, that maybe Daniel wasn't talking about me, that maybe Emily wasn't smirking at my expense. But denial has a short shelf life, because over the next few months, Emily made sure I understood exactly where I stood, in her world, beneath her. One night after a 16-hour shift at the hospital, I collapsed onto the couch at my coworker Jenna's place, still wearing my scrubs, too tired to even change. My phone buzzed, and when I saw Emily's name, I forced myself to answer. "Hey," I whispered, voice ragged. Her laugh was sharp, almost mocking. "God, you sound dead. What do they even pay you for those shifts? Minimum wage and a pat on the back?" I swallowed hard. "It's not about the money, Emily. My patients—" She cut me off. "Patients don't pay your rent, Rachel. Don't— You get tired of settling?" "I'm not settling," I snapped, surprising even myself. "I'm working hard for something that matters." Her tone shifted, silky and cruel. "Matters to who? Because right now it looks like you're just running yourself into the ground while the rest of us actually live." I clenched the phone, forcing my voice to stay calm. "Emily, I lost everything. I'm trying to rebuild. I thought you'd understand." She sighed dramatically, then muttered, "Honestly, Rach, maybe you were never meant to have more." And then she hung up. The next time I saw her was at a birthday dinner for my aunt. Everyone was dressed up, the restaurant buzzing with laughter and clinking glasses. I wore the only nice dress I had salvaged from the fire, one that still smelled faintly of smoke no matter how many times I washed it. Emily strutted in late, Daniel at her side, dripping in designer clothes. She leaned down to hug me, her perfume chokingly strong, and whispered just loud enough for me to hear, "Don't worry, cousin. One day you'll afford a real dress." I froze. My aunt asked me something, but I couldn't even hear her. My cheeks burned so hot I thought they might catch fire again. Dinner dragged on, and I tried to keep my head down. But Emily wasn't done. She loved an audience. "So," she announced loudly, her wineglass twirling in her hand, "Rachel here is still working those insane nurse hours. Can you believe it? 16 hours a day just to scrape by. I told her she should find a man to take care of her, but she's stubborn." The table chuckled awkwardly. My mom gave me a sympathetic look, but Emily just grinned, basking in the attention. felt something snap inside me. My voice trembled, but I forced the words out. At least I can take care of myself, Emily. Her smile faltered, just for a second. Then she leaned closer, her eyes glittering like shards of glass. Careful, Rachel. Pride doesn't keep the lights on. After dinner, I sat in Mom's car, staring out the window as the city lights blurred past. My chest ached with humiliation. Mom's hand found mine. She's jealous, Rachel. Don't let her poison get into your bones. I wanted to believe that. I really did. But jealousy? Emily wasn't jealous. She was entertained. My pain was her punchline. And she wasn't just laughing anymore. She was sharpening her words into weapons. A week later, Emily called me again, her tone unnervingly sweet. Hey, Rach. So, Daniel's firm is looking for a personal assistant. Nothing glamorous, but it pays well. I thought of you. I hesitated. Emily, I already have a job. She cut me off, her voice dripping honey. Come on, it's not like you're rolling in cash. Besides, Daniel thinks you'd be useful. Useful? I repeated, my stomach tightening. She laughed softly. Don't be so sensitive. I'm trying to help you. I mean, you can't sleep on Jenna's couch forever, right? Something about the way she said it, like she was dangling scraps in front of a starving dog, made my skin crawl. Still, I asked, what exactly would I be doing? She paused, then replied, almost too casually, just errands, paperwork, keeping him company when I'm busy. My blood ran cold. Keeping him company? Emily chuckled, low and dismissive. Relax, it's not like that. Unless, of course, you wanted it to be. I hung up the phone, my hands shaking. For the first time, I wondered if Emily's cruelty wasn't just about mocking me. Maybe she was trying to set me up for something far worse. And deep down, a terrifying thought took root. What if my own cousin was willing to trade me for her convenience? I was about to find out just how far her betrayal would go. I should have trusted my gut when Emily dangled that so-called job opportunity, but desperation makes fools out of the proud. At that time, I was still living off Jenna's couch, my clothes reduced to 2 sets of scrubs and a few hand-me-downs, my savings bleeding dry from replacing the essentials I'd lost in the fire. I told myself maybe, just maybe, Emily was extending a hand instead of sharpening a knife. I was wrong. Daniel's office was on the 24th floor of a sleek glass building downtown, the kind of place where the walls gleamed and the air smelled like money. I wore my best outfit, a borrowed blazer over my work pants, and tried to ignore how out of place I felt as the receptionist led me in. Daniel greeted me with a smile. That didn't reach his eyes. So you're Rachel, Emily's cousin. Yes, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He leaned back in his leather chair, studying me. She tells me you're hardworking, loyal, willing to do what it takes. Something about the way he said willing made my stomach twist. He slid a folder across the desk. This would be part of your role, handling schedules, filing, and making calls. But sometimes clients expect more. A personal touch. I frowned. I don't understand. Daniel smirked, lowering his voice. You're a pretty woman. Rachel, men like to feel appreciated. Emily thought you'd be open to helping out. My chest went ice cold. Are you saying... He cut me off with a shrug. Call it companionship. Nothing you couldn't handle. I shoved the folder back toward him. I'm not that desperate. His smirk widened. Then maybe you should be. Emily seems to think. You don't have many options left. I stormed out of that building, fury buzzing in my veins. That night, I showed up at Emily's apartment, pounding on her door until she finally opened it, her silk robe sliding carelessly off one shoulder. She rolled her eyes. God, Rachel, what's your problem? My problem? My voice shook with rage. You tried to sell me off to your boyfriend like some escort. Emily smirked, sipping from a wine glass. Don't be dramatic. Daniel just wanted to test your boundaries. You failed, obviously. My jaw dropped. You think this is funny? She leaned against the doorframe, her eyes glittering with cruel amusement. Honestly? Yes. You strut around with your little nurse badge like it. Makes you better than me. But look at you, homeless, broke, alone. And you still think you're too good for the opportunities I hand you? Please. Her words sliced through me. But then she twisted the knife deeper. You'll never have what I have, Rachel. Men like Daniel don't look at women like you. You'll always be the poor cousin, the charity case. And if I want to laugh at that, I damn well will. As if that weren't enough, Emily decided to turn my humiliation into entertainment for others. The following weekend, she invited me to a dinner to make amends. Against my better judgment, I went, still hoping some fragment of the cousin I once loved was buried beneath her cruelty. The restaurant was upscale, the kind where the waiters judged you with their eyes. I walked in, only to realize the dinner was a party. Her party. Friends, acquaintances, Daniel's colleagues, all gathered, dressed to impress. Emily spotted me instantly and clapped her hands. Everyone, this is my cousin Rachel, the nurse I told you about. Dozens of eyes turned toward me. Emily's voice rang out, dripping with sarcasm. She's been having a rough time lately, lost everything in a fire, doesn't even have her own place to stay right now. Can you imagine? 32 and living on a friend's couch. Laughter rippled through the room. Daniel smirked from the corner. My face burned, my heart pounding so loudly I could barely hear. I wanted to vanish, to sink into the floor. But Emily wasn't finished. Oh, and you'll love this. Daniel offered her a job at his firm. Do you know what she said? She turned it down. Can you believe that? The crowd chuckled, some shaking their heads as if I were the punchline of a bad joke. My throat closed up. My hands trembled. I felt like I was drowning in shame. I left the restaurant without saying a word, tears blurring the city lights as I stumbled down the street. When I finally reached Jenna's apartment, I collapsed onto the couch, sobbing until my chest hurt. All I could hear was Emily's laughter echoing in my skull. She hadn't just mocked me. She hadn't just betrayed me. She had stripped me bare in front of strangers and called it entertainment. For the first time in my life, I truly believed I was worthless. But in the darkest hours of that night, as I stared at the ceiling and let the pain eat at me, something shifted. Emily thought she had broken me. But what she didn't know was that pain can harden into steel, and betrayal can birth a storm. I wasn't ready yet, but soon, I would be. I didn't leave my coworker's couch for days after that party. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emily's smirk. I heard the laughter of strangers echoing in my ears. And worse, I heard my own voice, silent, too paralyzed to defend myself. I hated myself for it. Jenna tried to comfort me. She made tea, left blankets on the couch, and even offered to let me stay as long as I needed. But I could see it in her eyes. The pity. The same pity that made me feel small, fragile, useless. At work, I kept my head down. I went through the motions, checking vitals, charting notes, smiling mechanically at patients. But inside, I was empty, like a ghost trapped in its own body. The other nurses noticed. "You okay, Rachel?" they'd ask gently. I'd nod, forcing a smile. Just tired. But I wasn't tired. I was drowning. The worst part wasn't the fire. It wasn't losing my home, my clothes, my journals. It wasn't even Emily's betrayal. It was the silence. When the shift ended, when the hallways emptied, when I crawled back onto Jenna's couch, there was nothing. No family dinners, no laughter around a kitchen table. Just silence. I thought of Mom, who had always been my anchor. She was still around, but her health was failing. She didn't have the energy to fight Emily's battles with me. I didn't want to burden her with my shame, so I carried it alone. One night, after a particularly brutal double shift, I came back to the apartment and found Jenna's boyfriend on the couch flipping through channels. He looked up and frowned. "Rachel, you ever gonna get back on your feet? Jenna's been too nice. You can't just stay here forever." His words hit me like a brick. My cheeks burned. I muttered an apology and fled to the bathroom, locking the door before the sobs tore out of me. I sank to the floor, hugging my knees, gasping for air between the tears. That was my lowest moment. The kind where you start to wonder if maybe the cruel voices are right. Maybe you are worthless. Maybe you are nothing. I pressed my forehead against the cold tile and whispered, "Why me? Why do they get to win while I keep losing?" My voice cracked, breaking apart. I can't do this anymore. And then, something inside me shifted. It wasn't loud. It wasn't sudden. It was small, like a flicker of light in a cave. But it was there. I remembered my mom's words. "Kindness is our legacy. Never let this world make you cruel." And for the first time, I wondered, maybe kindness didn't mean being silent. Maybe it didn't mean letting people walk all over me. Maybe it was time to stop letting Emily write my story. Because that's what she'd been doing, casting me as the pitiful cousin, the punchline. And I'd let her. But if she thought I was going to stay broken, she didn't know me as well as she thought. The next morning, I called in sick. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just sat there, staring at a blank notebook Jenna had left on the coffee table. And then I started writing. Every detail I could remember about Emily. Her words. Her lies. The things she whispered when she thought no one was listening. The way she flaunted Daniel. The things Mom had warned me about. I wrote it all down. Not for anyone else, at least not yet. For me. To remind myself that I wasn't crazy. That this had happened. That she had done this to me. Page after page, my hand cramped, my pen ran dry. And still, I wrote. By the time the sun set, I looked at the stack of notes and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Control. It wasn't much. But it was a start. That night, lying awake on the couch, I replayed Emily's words in my mind. The smirk, the laughter, the casual cruelty. I thought about Daniel, his smarmy smile, his disgusting offer. I thought about how Emily bragged, about her connections, how she lived off men like leeches, draining them until she found the next host. And a thought came to me. What if I could turn her own game against her? What if the laughter that had broken me could one day choke her? I didn't know how yet. I didn't know when. But I knew one thing with absolute clarity. I wouldn't stay broken. Emily thought she had silenced me forever. She was about to learn that silence can be the loudest weapon of all. And soon, I would start sharpening mine. Once the decision was made, I felt a strange calm. Not happiness, not joy, but focus. I stopped waiting for Emily to change. I stopped hoping she would see me as family. Instead, I began to see her as what she truly was, a predator. And predators can be studied. They can be tracked. They can be trapped. The first step was memory. That's why I kept writing. Every sneer, every comment, every suspicious detail. But I knew memory wasn't enough. If Emily thought she was untouchable, I needed to prove otherwise. I started small. Screenshots of her texts, recordings of her late-night phone calls when she'd forget to hang up properly and brag to friends on speaker. I collected everything I could without raising suspicion. And I remembered Daniel, the sleazy lawyer with the calculating eyes. If anyone held the key to her downfall, it was him. But first, I had to rebuild myself. I found a cheap studio apartment in a rundown complex, barely big enough for a bed and a chair. It smelled faintly of mildew. The heater rattled like it was on its last breath, but it was mine. For the first time since the fire, I closed a door behind me and felt safe. I worked extra shifts at the hospital, saving every dollar I could. I kept my head down, but inside, I was sharpening my resolve. Each night, I returned to that notebook, adding more. It became my Bible of betrayal. And slowly, patterns began to emerge. Emily was easy to track. She lived for attention. Every brunch, every outfit, every vacation, she plastered it across social media. At first, it hurt to see her flaunting what I didn't have. But then I noticed the cracks. The same handbag appears in different new photos. Vacations that were more staycations at fancy hotels downtown. Men who vanished from her posts as quickly as they appeared. Emily's world wasn't gold, it was tinfoil, and I intended to peel it back for everyone to see. One night, while charting patient notes at the nurse's station, Jenna leaned over and whispered, "Rachel, I don't mean to pry, but I know something's been eating you alive." I hesitated. For months, I'd kept the pain buried, but something in her eyes, steady, kind, not pitying, made me exhale the truth. I told her everything. The fire, the humiliation, the party, Daniel's disgusting offer, Emily's laughter. By the time I finished, Jenna's hands were clenched into fists. "That's evil. She's evil." I nodded, tears burning my eyes. "I don't know what to do, Jenna. I can't just keep letting her win." She leaned closer. "Then don't. Fight back. And if you need help, you're not alone." For the first time, I realized I didn't have to fight this war by myself. With Jenna's help, I started digging. She was better at tech than I was, showed me how to recover deleted messages, how to trace shady posts back to burner accounts Emily thought no one knew about. What we found made my skin crawl. Emily wasn't just flaunting her lifestyle. She was blackmailing one of her exes, threatening to expose private photos if he didn't keep sending her money. Another string of messages revealed she'd scammed a boutique out of thousands by claiming damaged goods she never returned. Every discovery added fuel to the fire in my chest. This wasn't just about me anymore. Emily was a parasite. She had been feeding off people's trust, money, and pride for years. I knew I couldn't just walk up to her and scream, "I know what you did." Emily would laugh in my face. No, I needed her to expose herself, publicly. So I staged it carefully. First, I pretended to soften. I sent Emily a text one night. "I've been thinking. Maybe you were right, about aiming higher, about letting go of pride. Can we meet?" She replied instantly. "Finally. I knew you'd come around. Daniel has another opening. This one's even better. You won't want to miss it." My stomach turned, but I forced myself to play along. We arranged to meet at a rooftop lounge downtown, a place full of her crowd, full of the eyes she loved so much. I slipped my phone into my purse, recording app ready, heart pounding like a drum. That night, as I walked toward the glittering lights of the rooftop, I repeated the plan in my head. Let her talk. Let her brag. Let her trap herself with her own words. But a tiny voice whispered in the back of my mind. What if I underestimated her? Because with Emily there was always a risk. And this time, if I failed, I wouldn't just walk away humiliated. I might not walk away at all. Still, I pushed open the door. And the game began. The rooftop lounge glowed like a jewel against the Dallas skyline. Music pulsed from hidden speakers, and laughter drifted through the warm night air. I walked inside with my heart thundering, every step rehearsed in my mind. Emily was already there. Draped in red silk, hair curled to perfection, Daniel at her side like some accessory she'd grown tired of but hadn't thrown away yet. When she saw me, her lips curled into that familiar smirk. Well, well, the prodigal cousin returns. I forced a smile, sliding into the chair across from her. My phone stayed hidden in my purse, recording every word. I leaned in, keeping my voice soft, hesitant. You were right, Emily, about everything. I've been too proud, too stupid. Her eyes lit up, victorious. Finally. God, Rachel, I thought you'd never admit it. Daniel raised his glass lazily. Smart move. Pride doesn't pay rent. I swallowed my disgust and played my role. So, this new opportunity you mentioned? Emily sipped her drink, her eyes glinting with satisfaction. Daniel's got a client, wealthy, generous. He's looking for someone flexible. You'd be perfect. Flexible? I echoed, feigning innocence. Daniel smirked. Let's just say he values company. As much as competence. Emily leaned closer, lowering her voice but loud enough for the recorder to catch. Rach, it's easy money. You charm him a little, and he keeps you comfortable. No more couches, no more pity parties. Honestly, you'd be stupid to say no. My stomach churned, but I forced myself to nod slowly. I'll think about it. The rest of the night, Emily bragged about her handbags, her connections, her control over men. She laughed at stories of women who didn't know how to play the game. Every word spilled onto my recorder. Every cruel detail became ammunition. When she finally excused herself to the bathroom, I sat frozen, pulse racing. I had her. Proof, not just of her contempt, but of her schemes. For the first time in months, I felt power humming in my veins. Next morning, I played the recording for Jenna in my tiny apartment. Her jaw dropped. Rachel, this is gold. She basically admitted to pimping you out. I nodded, my hands shaking. It's not enough for the court, but if people heard her say it, if Daniel's firm heard, if her friends heard, Jenna's eyes gleamed. You could ruin her. The thought sent a thrill through me. Emily, stripped of her glittering mask, exposed for the parasite she was. For once, I wasn't the punchline. She was. I didn't go nuclear yet. I needed to be sure the recording would hit where it hurt. So I sent a snippet, just a few seconds, to one of Emily's closest friends, a woman named Claire, who had always looked at me with pity during family dinners. I typed carefully, thought, you should know what Emily really says when she thinks no one's listening. Within minutes, Claire responded, oh my God, Rachel, this is bad. I can't believe she said that. A day later, Emily called me, her voice sharp and furious. Rachel, what the hell did you do? I feigned confusion. What do you mean? Don't play dumb, she snapped. Claire's been blowing up my phone. She says you sent her some twisted recording? I let a pause hang in the air, then whispered, funny how people react when they hear the truth. Her breath hitched. You think you're clever? You have no idea who you're messing with. And then she hung up. For the first time, I wasn't the one crying after a phone call. I wasn't the one humiliated, silenced. No, Emily was rattled. It was a small win, just a crack in her armor, but it was enough to make me realize she wasn't invincible. She wasn't untouchable. She could bleed. Over the next week, whispers started to circulate. A cousin texted me, what did Emily do? Claire's telling people stuff. I said nothing, just let the rumors grow. Emily thrived on reputation. Without it, she was nothing. Meanwhile, Jenna and I dug deeper, piecing together more evidence. Her scams, her lies, her cruelty. Every day my arsenal grew, but the real revenge? That still lay ahead. The rooftop recording was just a teaser. I needed something bigger, something undeniable, something that would leave her begging for forgiveness. One night, Jenna looked up. from her laptop, eyes wide. "Rachel, you're not going to believe this. I found something. Something huge." My heart pounded. "What is it?" She turned the screen toward me, her voice trembling with excitement. "If this is true, Emily's not just cruel. She's a criminal." And suddenly I knew. The small victories were over. The real battle was about to begin. When Jenna turned her laptop toward me that night, I didn't know whether to feel terror or triumph. On her screen was a trail of emails, proof that Emily had been funneling money from Daniel's firm into her personal accounts. Fake invoices, ghost clients. Thousands of dollars were siphoned off into a hidden bank account under her name. Jenna whispered, "If this gets out, she's finished." I stared at the screen, my pulse racing. My cousin wasn't just cruel. She was a thief. And the law didn't look kindly on thieves. For days, I carried that knowledge like a live wire in my chest. I could go to the police. I could hand it to Daniel. I could leak it to her friends, her clients, her family. But none of those felt right. Emily's weapon had always been public humiliation. She loved an audience. She thrived on laughter at my expense, so if she wanted a stage, I would give her one. It came sooner than I expected. Emily announced she was hosting a charity gala at a hotel downtown, a night of champagne, designer gowns, and expensive speeches. Of course, it wasn't really about charity. It was about her reputation, her glittering image. I knew then that would be the night. I spent weeks preparing. Jenna helped me refine the recordings, compile the emails, and landed up every piece of evidence. I invested in one thing I hadn't in months, myself. A sleek black dress, red lipstick, hair curled. For once, I didn't look like the pitiful cousin. I looked like someone who belonged in that glittering room. When I walked in, heads turned. Not because I was dazzling, but because Emily hadn't invited me. Her eyes widened for a fraction of a second before she plastered on her hostess smile. "Rachel," she purred, "what a surprise." I leaned and kissed her cheek. "Wouldn't miss it." She narrowed her eyes but moved on, too busy basking in the camera's flash. I bided my time, mingled with guests, watched Emily flit around the room like a queen holding court. My phone sat heavy in my purse, ready. When the speeches began, Emily floated to the stage, microphone in hand, basking in applause. She smiled sweetly. "Tonight, we celebrate generosity. We celebrate those who give selflessly to others. That was my cue. I slipped out my phone, connected it to the projector hidden behind the stage. One click, and the screen lit up. First came the audio, Emily's voice, sharp and cruel. "Rachel, it's easy money. You charm him a little and he keeps you comfortable. No more couches, no more pity parties. Honestly, you'd be stupid to say no." Gasps rippled through the room. Emily froze on stage, her face draining of color. Then the emails appeared, line after line of proof. Fake invoices, stolen funds. Emily's name, Emily's account. The room erupted. Whispers, shouts. Daniel surged to his feet, his face twisted, with fury. I watched Emily crumble, her mask shattered, her voice trembling into the microphone. This is fake. It's not." But the evidence spoke louder than she ever could. Daniel stormed the stage, ripping the microphone from her hands. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" His voice was venomous, echoing through the ballroom. Emily reached for him, desperate. "Baby, please," he recoiled. Don't call me that." The guests began to scatter, some recording. The chaos on their phones, others shaking their heads in disgust. Emily's world, her audience, her reputation, her carefully crafted lies, was crumbling in real time. And I stood at the edge of the room, silent, watching. For once, she was the punchline. Later, as security escorted her out, she spotted me. Her eyes were wild, streaked with mascara. She lunged toward me, her voice breaking. "Rachel, please! Don't do this! You don't understand, I didn't mean—" I held her gaze, my voice low, steady. "You laughed when I had nothing. Now it's your turn." Her knees buckled. The guards dragged her away, her cries echoing through the emptying hall. I should have felt triumphant, victorious, untouchable. But as I walked out into the cool night air, the city lights glittering above me, a strange heaviness settled over my chest. Emily's humiliation was complete. But the fallout, the lawsuits, the family drama, the chaos still to come, that was only beginning. And I couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't done with me yet. The days after the gala were chaos. Emily's name wasn't whispered anymore. It was shouted, on social media, at family dinners, in hushed conversations at church. The recordings spread like wildfire, shared from one phone to another. And the emails? Daniel wasted no time dragging them into the light. His firm launched an internal investigation that turned into a criminal case almost overnight. My cousin, the girl who once mocked me for having nothing, was now being called a thief, a liar, a fraud. Mom called me first. Her voice trembled with disbelief. "Rachel, what did you do?" I held my breath. "The truth, Mom. I just showed people the truth." Silence hung between us, heavy and complicated. Then she whispered, "She brought this on herself." But, "Rachel, you've opened a door you can't close." She was right. At the next family gathering, eyes followed me everywhere. Some cousins pulled me aside, whispering that Emily had it coming. Others glared, as if I'd betrayed blood itself. One aunt hissed, "Family doesn't turn on family." I wanted to scream. Family doesn't sell each other off like property. Family doesn't laugh while you burn. But I kept my mouth shut, letting the weight of their stares settle over me like ash. The headlines came next. Dallas woman caught in charity fraud scheme. Local socialite under fire for embezzlement. Allegations. Her face, once the darling of social media, was plastered across the news, but not for the reasons she craved. Daniel cut ties immediately. He released a statement calling her a manipulative liability. Cold, brutal, final. Her friends evaporated too. The same people who laughed at me in that restaurant now ghosted her calls, unfollowed her pages, and deleted photos. One by one, her glittering lights went out. It didn't take long before she came crawling. She showed up outside my apartment one rainy evening, drenched, mascara streaking down her cheeks. I froze in the doorway. For a moment, I almost didn't recognize her. The red silk and diamonds were gone. She looked small, fragile. Her voice cracked. "Rachel, please, you have to help me. They're saying things, twisting it. If you just tell them. Tell them." "You made it up?" My jaw tightened. "Made it up? I have the recordings, Emily. The emails." She dropped to her knees, clutching my hand. "I didn't mean it. I was stupid. I was jealous. Please, Rachel, you're all I have left." Her tears should have softened me. Once upon a time, they would have. But all I could hear was her laughter that night after the fire. Her voice mocked. Me when I had nothing. I pulled my hand away. "Now you know how it feels." That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the rain tapping against the glass. I should have felt victorious. I'd won. Emily was broken, exposed, begging at my door. But victory wasn't clean. It never is. My chest ached with something I couldn't name. Relief, grief, guilt, power, all tangled together. I thought about Mom's words. Kindness is our legacy. Had I crossed a line? Had I let cruelty make me cruel, or had I simply survived? Jenna noticed the shift in me. At the hospital, She pulled me aside. You're quiet lately. Doesn't feel like winning to you, does it? I shook my head. It feels heavy, like I set fire to her world, but part of me burned too. Jenna touched my arm gently. Maybe that's the price. You didn't start this, Rachel. She did. You just made sure she couldn't keep hurting you. Her words helped, but only a little. Revenge had given me strength, but it also carved scars I knew would never fully fade. Weeks later, I got a letter. Not from Emily, not from family, but from a lawyer, a subpoena. Emily wasn't just broken. She was fighting back. And as I stood there, paper trembling in my hands, I realized this story wasn't finished yet, not until I decided how it would truly end. The subpoena shook me. For a moment, I felt that old fear return. The helplessness, the shame. Emily wasn't done trying to drag me down. But this time, something was different. I wasn't the girl crying on Jenna's couch anymore. I wasn't the cousin humiliated at dinners and parties. I was someone who had survived the fire, the betrayal, the laughter, and come out harder, sharper, stronger. And Emily? She was still the same. Desperate, clawing, afraid. The court hearing was brief. Daniel's firm presented their evidence. Investigators stacked proof on proof, and Emily's lawyer barely had room to breathe. She tried to blame me, said I'd framed her, said I was jealous, said I'd always hated her. But when the recordings played in that courtroom, when the emails were projected on the wall, the truth became undeniable. The judge dismissed her claims. The investigation against her moved forward, and for the first time, Emily didn't smirk. She didn't laugh. She just stared at me, hollow and trembling, like a woman staring into a mirror she couldn't break. After the hearing, she caught me, in the hallway. Her voice was barely more than a whisper. Rachel, please, I don't care about the money. I don't care about Daniel. Just don't hate me. We were supposed to be sisters. I looked at her, the girl who once crawled into my bed during thunderstorms, the cousin who once felt like my other half, and I realized something. I didn't hate her. Not anymore. Because hate meant she still had power over me. I shook my head slowly. No, Emily. We were supposed to be family, but you broke that, and I won't carry your weight anymore. Her lip trembled. So, that's it? I turned away. That's freedom. Life didn't magically fix itself. My apartment was still small. My job was still exhausting. Money was still tight. But I had peace. Real peace. The kind that comes when you stop letting someone else define your worth. At the hospital, patients started telling me, "You're the only one who makes me feel human here." Nurses smiled when I walked in. Doctors leaned on me during the chaos, and I realized I didn't need Emily's approval. I didn't need anyone's laughter, applause, or validation. I had my own life, my own strength, my own story. When someone you love betrays you, it feels like the world ends, like you'll never be whole again. But here's what I learned. Betrayal doesn't define you. Revenge doesn't define you. What defines you is what you do after. I didn't forgive Emily. Not because I couldn't, but because forgiveness, for me, meant pretending the fire, the laughter, the humiliation never happened. And I refused to erase my scars. Instead, I chose clarity. I chose to walk forward without carrying her weight, her cruelty, her shadow. And that choice? That was my freedom. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe. It means more than, tell me if someone betrayed you this deeply. Would you forgive them, or would you walk away forever? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. Because sometimes, the most powerful revenge isn't laughter, or exposure, or even justice. Sometimes, it's way stronger than they ever imagined.